When I think of video games, there are two particular genres that come to mind for me personally. One is sports games, and the other is a role-playing game. What's going on, everybody? I'm Jay. Welcome to Square Pegs. Throughout the history of video games, there have been numerous incredible role-playing games, whether you're going all the way back to like early PC games where you're getting early Ultimate titles, all the way to today with massive 200-300 hour games. The role-playing game is a genre that has been near and dear to my heart for years. Now today I want to give you 10 different fantastic RPGs you can play across 10 different consoles. I'm going to do my best to avoid stuff that you know is going to be on this list or you would expect to be on this list. So not going to do Final Fantasies, not going to do anything that's typical, no personas, anything like that. We're going to try to stick to a little bit more nuance, I guess, for lack of a better term. There's definitely going to be some greatest hits on here, but not necessarily the stuff that you would expect to see. Today we're starting off with a fantastic game from one of my favorite handheld systems, the Neo Geo Pocket Color. This is Biomotor Unitron. I'm a sucker for the Neo Geo Pocket Color, as I'm sure anyone that's been on the channel for a while knows. And this is Biomotor Unitron, which is wonderful. This is a really cool take on an RPG, because it's not just a traditional top-down kind of JRPG from the 16-bit generation. It's actually a dungeon crawler, which is super cool. But it's not set during fantasy times. It's sci-fi. It's totally sci-fi. You control a robot. It's called Unitron, and you go into the dungeons and you're fighting enemies to collect money. You get to buy upgrades for your robot. It's wonderful. It really is. And it's super fun to say. Like, my friend Lindsay from LL Cool Games likes to comment on the fact that I just really like saying this game because it's got a good rhythm, right? Like Biomotor Unitron, Biomotor Unitron. I love it. It's got such a good cadence, and the game is really fun. Like, it's a solid title for the Neo Geo Pocket Color. It's the rare RPG on the platform, so it stands out in that regard as well, and it's super well done. It was also re-released on the Neo Geo Pocket Color Volume 2 selection, so if you don't have an NGPC but you're interested in playing it, you can get that on multiple different consoles. It's just fun to say, right? Like, it has such good cadence. Biomotor Unitron. It is a fantastic game, super, super cool. Love that it was on the Neo Geo Pocket Color, system that is known primarily for its fighting games. Getting a deep RPG like Biomotor Unitron on there is amazing. Next up is a fantastic tactical strategy RPG from the Sega Genesis. And I can't give up the Summer of Sega. That was last year, but my love for the Genesis goes back decades. And today, I want to show you one of my favorite RPGs on the Genesis. This is Shining Force 2. I really do enjoy the Shining Force series. I really enjoy tactical strategy games to begin with. And when the tactical strategy game becomes an RPG as well, when it has a really brilliant story behind it, stuff like what you see here with the Shining Force series or the Fire Emblem, I'm really enraptured by what they provide. And this game here, Shining Force 2, is wonderful. It is, like I said, it's a tactical RPG, and the game is brilliant. Like, it's very much turn-based combat. It's not that hard to understand. Like, when you actually get into combat, which unfortunately I don't show any in this footage because my save file corrupted and it takes forever to get into combat at the start of this game.
Oh, bitch, bitch, bitch.
Sorry. It's a wonderful title, though. It is super fun, and if you do enjoy tactical RPGs, the Shining series needs to be on your must playlist because every game in it is at least enjoyable and at least worth playing. The first two, I think, are probably my favorites, although Shining Wisdom is also really good, but check it out if you haven't played it. I think it's fun. All right, hopping over to the N64 now, and this one is on this list because it's near and dear to my heart. This is the first game my wife ever beat. I remember how proud she was. I came home from work, she was sitting upstairs in our loft playing on my N64, and finally she beat her first game, and that game was Paper Mario. It is an amazing RPG and something that we both love, and I'm just stoked that she loved it as much as she does. Look, Paper Mario is great. That's all I'm going to tell you about it. It's an absolutely fantastic game, but I want to talk to you a little bit about why this game is so important to me. So, when Meredith and I were first married, we lived in an apartment down near UCF in Orlando, and I was working at EA at the time, so my hours were ridiculous. I was working a ton of hours. I wasn't home a lot. And she started playing more video games. Like, up to that point, she was primarily just playing things like Tetris and Animal Crossing and stuff like that. But I ended up getting an N64 briefly, and I picked up Paper Mario because I wanted to play it. I had never had the opportunity to try it at the time. And one week while I was out, I think I was working on... It had to have been a NASCAR game. When I was working on NASCAR, we were in crunch time, and I came home, and she was sitting up in our loft where my retro games were, and she was playing Paper Mario. And come to find out, she was right at the ass end of it, and she beat the game. It was one of the first games she had ever beaten. It was something where I've never seen her so proud of an accomplishment, as far as like a nonsense accomplishment, like beating a video game at least. And it was just so cool to see that kind of game kind of spark and inspire a love of video games now that she has with games like the Zelda series or the Assassin's Creed series. These are things that she pours a ton of time into and just loves, and it all started with Paper Mario. All right, jumping to the PS1 now, and if you have been on the channel for a while, I can already hear you guys going, oh great, he's going to tell us about Suikoden 2. And no, I'm not going to tell you about Suikoden 2. I've talked that game up enough. If you haven't played it at this point, it's on you. I am, however, going to talk about the original game in that series, and that is Suikoden. Man, remember when Konami used to make video games? Just compelling, crazy video games where we had stuff like Metal Gear Solid when it was first releasing, and all those incredible Castlevania games like Symphony of the Night, and we had the Suikoden series, which all started here in 1995 on the original Genso Suikoden. This is my favorite RPG franchise, by far. I talk about Suikoden 2 constantly on the channel, but the first game in the franchise should not be overlooked. Every game in the Suikoden series is based on the Water Margin story, which is a classic Chinese novel from the Ming Dynasty, and it features 108 characters that you're able to recruit, the 108 Stars of Destiny, where there's over 80 of them are usable in combat. Some of them just kind of hang out at your headquarters and whatnot, but the combat options are there. You're able to have vast, varied character options and different party configurations that you want to use. The storyline is wonderful. The graphics, I think, hold up really well, and I can't wait for the HD remaster that's coming out later this year. Actually, in a month. Comes out in March. I love this franchise, and I love this series, and this game is amazing. And what's super cool is your character from this game can actually transfer to Suikoden 2. It's hard for me not to love the original. It does a lot of things incredibly well. There's some clunkiness in the game. You can tell this was kind of a side project for Konami. It wasn't necessarily something that they put a ton of time and money behind, so there's definitely some bugs, definitely some clunkiness. But I love the foundation that was laid here for my favorite video game franchise. So really excellent title, well worth picking up, and significantly cheaper than Suikoden 2. Over to the NES now, the console that really started my love affair with video games. And there's no shortage of incredible RPGs on there. Whether you want to go with Final Fantasy, or you want to go with Dragon Warrior, or you want to go with the Ultima series, all great options. For me, though, this is one that's a little bit different, and it does something kind of ambitious with the RPG formula by not giving you hit points or anything like that. You actually get a troop counter, and I really thought this one was excellent, and it's something that I just recently picked up. I got this in Columbus last year at Game On. This is Destiny of an Emperor. I remember when I first played Destiny of an Emperor as a kid, I was kind of blown away by the entire concept of the game because it was different than any other RPG I had played. It didn't have hit points. I mean, it does have hit points, let's not be wrong here, but it didn't have hit points like in a traditional manner. You had troop numbers for each of your characters, and as you played, you were going to run into not only random, just kind of generic enemy forces, but you would also run into other generals that were wandering the countryside, and if you defeated them, you could recruit them onto your team, meaning you wouldn't run into them in random battles anymore. It was really, really ambitious, and it was really well done. It's a really solid game. It's something that I think holds up particularly well from the NES generation because while it is grindy, it's grindy in a different way than things like Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest. It's just excellent. There's 150 characters that you can recruit in this game. It's super cool. And it's kind of like Suikoden, based on Chinese mythology. This is based on one of the 4 great pieces of Chinese literature, and I think that's pretty cool. In fact, it's based on Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which is another series, but not in this video. The rare RPG from Capcom, and an excellent title. One of my favorite games, and just an excellent title. It's really cool to be able to play something like that, to see where Capcom's thought process was. It's just a brilliant game. Bopping over to the Nintendo Switch now, and we're going to use an entry from a long-standing series that I originally played, I want to say back on the Super Nintendo. And this is one that I'm really enjoying. I actually really like the way that this game plays. I really like the design. This is Ys 9, Monstrum Nox. The Ys franchise is one of those series that took a long time to really land for me. While I appreciated them when I was younger, it took until the PS4 releases for me to really get into it. And this one here, Ys 9 Monstrum Nox, is a port of a 2019 release on the PlayStation 4, and it plays brilliantly well on the Nintendo Switch. I am really intrigued by this franchise now, and it's something where I've gone back and played a bunch of them, and I can see a lot of the charm now. Now, some of the gameplay experiences aren't really my bag, but these 3D ones, I think, are really excellent. You play as Adol Christin, aka the Crimson King, and at the start of the game, you're imprisoned, and you have to break out and escape. And that's where your giant adventure begins. Now, this plays really well when you pair it up with Ys 8, from what I understand. I read that on Reddit. That was an opinion on Reddit there, so take that for what it's worth. It's the Waffle House of the internet, but I think that there's a lot of promise with the 3D Ys games. I think they're really excellent. I can't find any fault with this one. It's a really fun game. The combat is wonderful. The storyline is excellent. Definitely worth checking out. Ys series has always been really interesting to me because it wasn't one that necessarily connected heavily with me when I was younger, but it's always a series I've enjoyed, and it's nice to see it continuing to flourish in today's modern gaming space. Nintendo DS now, one of my all-time favorite consoles, and we saw them revisit the formula that worked so well in Super Mario RPG with the Mario and Luigi series. And this is Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. And that did start on the GBA, and I would love to have that game on here, but I don't own it, so I can't suggest it to you if I don't own it. But I do own this one, and it is amazing. Straight up, there isn't a bad choice in the Mario and Luigi series. They're all wonderful. Even Paper Jam, which people seem to hate, I think is fantastic. But today we're talking about Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, because if there's one thing I'm a sucker for in the Mario games, it's when you get to play as the bad guy. It's when you get to play as Bowser. And that happens in this game because you get inhaled by the big bad guy and you're fighting in his innards. And every once in a while you get to hop out and control Bowser, which is really cool. The gameplay is solid. Mario and Luigi are controlled together. You use the A and B button to control them. They both do different jumps. Bowser's controlled on the X and Y button. And it's a pretty straightforward Mario and Luigi game. If you've ever played one, you pretty much understand how this one works. You use the timing mechanics of your combat. So as you play, you're going to be given button prompts on screen to perform more damaging moves as you play. And that works both ways. You can either use it as Mario or Luigi or even Bowser. It's wonderful, though. This is just such a really fun game. And the Mario and Luigi games are just so incredibly charming to begin with that I can't help but love them. This one is just the one that I think stands a little bit above the other ones to me. Although Superstar Saga is brilliant as well. I love the Mario and Luigi series. I'm stoked that we got a new entry in the series on the Switch with Brothership. Bowser's Inside Story is amazing. Definitely worth playing if you haven't done so. This one might get some eyebrows raised, but it is an RPG. It's just an action RPG. It's a hack and slash RPG on the PlayStation 4, and much like Paper Mario, this is one that my wife fell head over heels for and put a ton of hours into that she absolutely loved. This is Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Ever since I was a kid, the world of ancient Greece has fascinated me. I was enthralled with Greek mythology and I was younger. One of my first original favorite video games was the Battle of Olympus. And it's all because of Dolaire's book of Greek mythology that I checked out from the Fall River Public Library when I was younger. And that's led to a lifelong obsession. And one of the things that I've always wanted, which will never happen because, time machines don't exist, is to visit ancient Greece, to see the Greek structures, to see the things that are now ruins, to see things like the Parthenon and the statue of Athena or the statue of Zeus in all of their glory before they were ruined. And I will never have that opportunity, but virtually I can do that in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. This is a wonderful game. I know a lot of folks don't like the Assassin's Creed games, and I'm not going to change your mind by saying that this is a good one, but it's an action RPG where you get to play as a descendant of King Leonidas of Sparta, and you explore Greece. You go to basically every major part of Greece from the ancient times, from antiquity, and it's amazing. There's so much incredible stuff here, and it plays not only seriously, which is what is good because it shows you what I guess quote-unquote realism would be in ancient Greece, but it also shows you the mythological side of things by bringing in kind of the fantastical side of things that Assassin's Creed tends to do. I adore this game. It is one of my all-time favorites and something that I just can't get enough of. Yeah, longtime viewers of the channel will know I'm a sucker for all things ancient Greek, and I loved being able to explore Greece. I loved being able to dive into that franchise and just go to this place that I've always wanted to see, that I was born in the wrong millennia, I guess. And to be able to kind of explore it in Assassin's Creed Odyssey was huge for me, and I absolutely loved it. Next up, my favorite BioWare game. And it's not Mass Effect, it's not Dragon Age, and it's not Knights of the Old Republic. It's Jade Empire. There was a time when BioWare was by far my favorite developer of RPGs, whether it was the incredible Mass Effect series, the original Dragon Age, or Knights of the Old Republic. Those were all amazing games, but for me, the one that is my personal favorite is Jade Empire. Set in a fictional Chinese mythology, you play as a character that is kind of like the last protector of this land, and you have to fight off hordes of undead and mythical creatures and just normal humans, and it's amazing because it was an opportunity to utilize martial arts as your combat mechanics, and you were able to kind of like switch your styles on the fly, which I thought was really cool. And it was just brilliant. I thought it worked incredibly well. I thought it was a compelling story that was well written, incredibly performed by the people doing the voice acting, including Nathan Fillion, who is amazing. And it was just marvelous. And unfortunately, it's the only entry in the series we've ever seen. Sales just didn't support having more Jade Empire out there, which is a shame to me. I love this game, though. It's still something I go back to often, and the original Xbox version is amazing. But there's plenty of different ports out there as well that you can try. I think Jade Empire is BioWare's magnum opus. I am utterly shocked that we have not gotten another entry in that franchise, because I think it is by far their best work, and it is an absolutely incredible title. A martial arts RPG, it's brilliant, just absolutely phenomenal. And the last one on this list, and one of the more valuable games I own, I recently picked this up. I want to thank Josh from J Gaming for helping me find this at Torg last year. This is Skies of Arcadia Legends on the GameCube. I don't think you can go wrong with any version of, well, I guess either version of Skies of Arcadia, but this is Skies of Arcadia Legends for the Nintendo GameCube. I recently picked this up at Torg last year. This was a grail pickup for me. This was something I wanted to get during the summer of Sega because this is a game I love, and I have loved for a long time, and it is just an absolutely marvelous title that does some incredibly ambitious stuff. So, like right off the bat, just looking at what you're seeing here, this is going to be kind of basic 3D JRPG fare where it's turn-based combat. There's a little bit of manipulation of space when you're in combat because you can have characters close in on other characters, which will cause different attacks to happen and things like that. But where the game really makes its mark is when you actually get to the exploration part of things, where you're flying in 3D space and not just moving around on an overworld. You actually explore, which I think is super cool. I love this game. It is a little ugly, I will give you that. Like the GameCube version's a little ugly, but it's so good, and it's such a smart title that is so brilliantly well written. And it's heartbreaking to me that this is the only Skies of Arcadia game we got, because this could have been a franchise. This should have been a huge series for Sega. Now, you can't go wrong with either version of Skies of Arcadia. Both the Dreamcast original and the GameCube game are great. This is just the one I happen to own. It's my what might have been franchise from Sega. I would love to see a revival of the Skies of Arcadia franchise because I think it is such an amazing game and such a rich world. There it is, my 10 RPGs on 10 different consoles that I think everyone should play. Let me know in the comments down below your list. What games do you think should be played by anyone that is an RPG fan? Hey, if you enjoyed today's video and you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe down below. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a comment. Let me know what RPGs you think I should have mentioned on this list. I'd love to hear which ones are your favorites from different consoles. Conspicuous by their absence, nothing on the PlayStation 2, 3, or 5. Nothing on pretty much any Xbox console outside of the original Xbox. Really interested to see what you guys think about that. And super conspicuous by its absence, the Super Nintendo. Frankly, because I couldn't pick. There's so many great ones on that console. Let me know your favorite Super Nintendo RPG down below. Until next time, folks, I've been Jay. Appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me. Remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.